to join me on this Lunch and Learn. Hopefully, I'm going to give a short presentation and then leave plenty of time for any questions that you may have. And if you do have any questions, please go ahead and pop them up in the chat. One of my things with the presentation is that I hope that I can answer any questions that you may have. So if there's something that you are dying to know about the release process that is not covered, or if you want to make sure that I cover it, you could go ahead and pop that into the chat, and I'll try to cover that in my my lecture, or we'll make sure we get to it afterwards. But I just want to know what you guys might want to get out of this and what you might want to know about the processes. So with that, I am going to go ahead and try to share my screen with everyone. And please bear with me because I'm a dog trainer and not an IT person. Right. Share, close that. Uh-oh. And are you able to see, Becky, if you can confirm what you're seeing?
I can see it. It looks, I think I can see more like your presenter view.
My presented view? Okay, let me.
Yeah, you're in presenter mode, Chuck.
And then just for anybody that's new, just make sure you turn on your mute and that you turn off your video.
How does that work there for you now?
Beautiful.
All right. Well, thank you. I have 2 computer screens and everything, so it's really overwhelming for me. So when we think about canine companions, we definitely have releases. Not every dog is going to be suitable for this. What we have to do is we want to remember what's going on. Remember our why it is we're doing this. We are an organization that utilizes the human-animal bond and canines, but we're really about people. We are an organization that is utilizes dogs, but our center thing is to help people with disabilities. And that's what we have to remember in this whole process, is that what we're doing with our canines is to better the life of someone with a disability. So what are we looking for? So what is ideal? So if you could sort of look here, we have different things that may be what we're looking for. And I wouldn't put any sort of specific rank on any of them, but a good thing would be a dog that functions as a well-behaved service animal and chooses to remain and offer general attention by either moving past or not moving towards a persuasive distraction. That would be like the lowest level of what we would want. Then we're looking at a dog that functions as a well-behaved service animal and chooses to maintain focus on service responsibilities despite animal, people, noise, object, and scent temptations. That's looking into the little bit next level of proficiency. Then what we're really wanting and hoping for is when focus is temporarily lost, a client handler is able to regain reliable service dog behaviors from a stationary position with minimal effort. And that's the point, as we talk about management and effort from the eyes of the clients that we serve. So those are some ideal things. So why might we release dogs? And I believe you guys have heard this several times, and some of you may be new to it, but there's really 2 reasons that we'll release dogs. One is medical and the other is behavioral. And each of those can be broken down into subcategories as well. So once the dogs turn in, we do a series of health checks on them to make sure that there isn't a financial responsibility to our clients and our graduates that we're giving them a healthy dog. And the most important part of that is that the dog is going to have a healthy and long working life for them. So we check the eyes, we check hips, elbows, heart, skin, allergies, and chronic conditions as ear infections or limping or anything else that might be there. All of the dogs are go through these things, and they are cleared by our veterinarian staff at National before they are allowed to be placed with our client. So behavioral. This is where things can get really interesting. Behaviorally, there's many subcategories of what we could release a dog for. The most common that we see are right now, you could see the list that we have, but the most common that we've been seeing over the last couple years here, specifically at the Southwest region, is around fear, with displays of suspicious barking, caution, avoiding people, situations, or surfaces. That's been the most common. We have some, I would say, nuisance barking, or barking that might have a client being asked to leave a building or a place where they would have ADA access to. So in offices, we see it in the training room, we see it in the crate, we see it in the van as we go out. Then the next one that we've been seeing is toy and food guarding with other dogs. And then the last is excessive energy and distractibility. So going back to those three levels of thing is the distraction, where it's taking so much what we call handler management, handler intervention, or energy from the handler to get the dog to reliably return to working mode for them. Others that you could see up here are inappropriate toileting, inappropriate vocalization. Again, that would be the barking, whining, something that might have a client asked to leave, like a place that they're visiting, or their work. It could be interrupting where they go to work. Anxiety and resistance. And anxiety can be in many forms. Anxiety can mean that as expectations are increased, the dog becomes a little bit uncertain in his reliability to perform tasks. It can also be around separation anxiety. If I were to perhaps maybe have a dog on tie down or in a crate and I leave the room, that the dog might whine or bark or just want to be extra social with me. So those are some of the behavioral releases that we do. What we have to do is assess the appropriateness of the dog. These are things that we are looking for in a dog, okay? And we got to think of it back to that handler, back to the reason, back to the person. So we're looking for the ability to adapt to new environments, that the dog is going to be asked to go to many different places. One day it can go to a farmer's market, and the next the dog might be at church. The next, it could be going to work with a person or to a school with a child. Reliability. How is that dog going to behave, and is it going to be predictable? Will the dog follow through with commands? Is the dog going to show a pattern of predictable behaviors? Willingness. How willing is the dog? Does the dog want to be with me? Does the dog want to work for me? Or is the dog more interested in other things, such as a bunny across the street or the group of dogs that are playing in the play yard? Low prey drive. Obviously, we don't want the dogs chasing after cats or rabbits or other kind of animals. How much attention to the handler? Again, is that dog handler focused? Is it willing to work for me? Does it want to stay next to me? Responsiveness. How easy is it for me to get the dog back on task? Is it responsive? Again, we're looking at the ability to work in various environments around numerous distractions. We also want a little bit of a ability to problem solve, because not everything the dog encounters is going to be predictable, and there has to be a certain level of confidence in the dog itself. So those are things that we look for. So what happens before we release a dog? Well, we ask you guys to fill out monthly puppy reports for us, and we do look at them, and we really pick them apart, and we try to match all the pieces of a puzzle. So we take everything that you guys have seen in the puppy home, and then we also look at everything that we have seen here in professional training, and we look for trends. We're trying to see if there's patterns. Is there certain things that are happening? How ingrained is this habit in the dog? How ingrained is this behavior in the dog? What is the frequency of it? What is the severity or intensity of it? And how does the dog respond to a behavior modification program? Okay, so while we're looking for all of that, what we do is we start to identify these behaviors. We also consult with the puppy file. And sometimes if we don't even see a correlation there and we're stumped on this, we will contact Becky and ask her to contact the puppy raiser for us and try to find out any more information on this before we release the dog. It's a collaborative effort. The trainers, we all meet and we discuss any behavioral concerns that we have on our strings. I meet with the program director, Shelley. I meet with Becky Hines sometimes as well and just run some things by her. We also have national training managers meetings where we'll discuss any behaviors in dogs and any solutions that we might try to come up with those. And I'm going to touch more a little bit on this in a little bit later. I just want to get through some more slides here, but what we'll do is I want to touch a little bit more on our behavior modification and what we're doing with that, okay? So things we're considering as we're going through all of this, and the number one thing is client safety. Is this going to potentially injure a client? And two, is it potentially going to injure the dog if the client can't handle it? So safety is number one. What we're also worried about is access issues. We want to have assistance dog standards set by ADI, which is Assistance Dog International, and that is our accrediting agency. We have to make sure we are meeting those standards so our dogs can have public access, that they're behaving and showing manners out in public. We want to be sure that we not only set those standards, but we are the leader of the industry, and we lead with that throughout all of the assistance dogs organizations. We also want to make sure that the dog is enhancing the person's life. We don't want the dog to be limiting the person's life. So if the dog is not, has high energy, doesn't have very good house manners, may have excitable greetings, may not walk over surfaces, that's going to limit where this person might go or might be able to go. And that's something that we don't want to have happen. We have to remember this is a lifelong commitment. With medical limitations, it might be financial. It could be having to go to many vet appointments and taking a lot of time out of the client's day. Again, that's putting limits on the client. Also, behavioral, that can consist of a lot of time and a lot of heartache of trying to fix these behaviors. So that's all I have with that on some questions. I'm gonna end the slideshow so I could show my face again real quick and I could see if there's any questions in the chats that need to be answered. Okay, can you guys see me live again, Becky?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what we do to try to change the behaviors of the dogs and what we have to assess. So what we have to assess is if this behavior can, or this habit that the dog has, can actually be changed, or is it going to just require management for life? So an easy example of that is resource guarding. Let's use an extreme example to get an idea. So we can work with that and we can get the dog to a certain point where the dog might not exhibit that behavior any longer. However, that is a hardwired behavior in the dog. And just like any human, our true natures come out when we're under stress, okay? So you can imagine if that dog may have to go out in public, and as it's out in public, it hears a motorcycle going down the highway really close to him and his noise and might get a little startled. It encounters a group of children that are hugging all over him. Then he has to get back in the car and go home and then perform his commands. And by the time he gets home, he's going to go eat his bowl and he is up to here. And then he might snap again. So those things happen. So something like resource guarding is a behavior that, yes, we can modify, but it is a lifelong management, and we have to watch it and make sure that we're not having it reinforced in any little way. So what we're going to do when we start with behavior modifications, we're going to look to make sure the dog's needs are physically being met. If we have a dog who's displaying excitable greetings, who is whining in the crates, who are barking in the crates, we're going to want to make sure that that dog's needs are being met. One, that everything is a-okay medically. Two, that the dog is getting proper exercise and an outlet for energy. Or three, that the dog is just having its needs met physically and being pet. So once we know that, then we're going to look at the situation and the environment, and we're going to set it up. We'll call that maybe what we call antecedent arrangements. So basically, that's just looking at the environment and saying, okay, how can we best control this environment so we can set the dog up to do the things that we want it to do and be successful at that. Once that is set up, that we know this dog is going to perform best in this situation, that's going to allow us as trainers to what we call positively reinforce that behavior, whether it's through food, whether it's through play, whether it's through petting, whatever it may be. We are going to reinforce that behavior that we have created that we like and positively reinforce it. Moving along with that, we might, and sometimes the positive reinforcement might not be enough. That desire to jump on somebody, that desire to chase the kitty, that's a whole lot more stronger than us wanting to get a piece, or the dog wanting to get a piece of kibble. I'm sorry. So basically, if that dog then doesn't respond to that positive reinforcement in a way, we might have to up our ante in what the dog finds reinforcement. And we do have higher value dog treats because for some dogs, a treat is not going to be as fun or as interesting as that cat or the tennis ball. But then we'll go into training alternate behaviors as well, or what we call differential reinforcement. So what we'll do is it's a lot harder to chase a cat when the dog's in a down. It's a lot harder to jump on somebody if they're in a down or a sit. Okay, so we'll train some alternate behaviors in that. Lastly, we'll look at either withholding the positive reinforcement and saying, if you don't give us the behaviors that you want, you're not going to earn the treat or the petting or this. And then the last one that we do is we will add correction in to try to suppress the behavior that we're looking for. But it is sort of this way of building up positively that we know we're trying to actually teach the dog what is right before we punish them for what is wrong. Because then we have to look at the emotional side of that. If we start punishing dogs and correcting them and they don't understand what they're supposed to do right, then that's really going to affect them negatively emotionally. They'll feel like they don't have that out. So we really try hard to do that. There is some subjectivity to this. We have been doing this for years. We know dog training really well, but the other part of that equation which I think is even more important than knowing the dog training, is knowing our clients, knowing what works with our clients and what has been successful before and what has failed before, and actually learning from those mistakes. We have made placements that did not work out. We have tested the waters to see, can we place a dog that might be displaying some of these behaviors? He's not really that bad with his nails when he's getting groomed, but then when we place him with somebody else and a person with a disability, he is really that bad, and it's sort of come back to where the graduate might not be able to handle it. So we do have that experience under our belt of knowing what our clients' needs are. I'm going to pause there and take a few questions. If anyone has questions, I can look through this. So.
And let me know if I can help, Chuck.
Okay. It says here, if a puppy doesn't qualify for service dog, would he or she be considered to be a facility dog before being possibly released? Great question. So with these, this is I see, these are why these questions are great. I didn't get to hit on that. That was a part of what I did want to discuss, is that we look at a slot. We have like a sliding scale. Okay, so each dog, as we look at the dogs, each dog has certain things that they do really well and certain things that they might not do so well, right? So we, as matchmakers, we have to look at our clients and say, well, if this dog needs to be handled by, a more assertive handler, someone who follows directions really well. They're not as passive. They do follow the rules. They have that type A personality. We might be able to match that dog with them. And on the other hand is we want to say, well, this person is a little bit more passive in life, and that's okay. But we're not going to want to put a dog that takes advantage of them. So we also have to look at where these dogs are being placed. So if we have a dog who might show some slight surface sensitivity or might show some slight avoidance of elevators, yes, we can look at our list and find if there's a place that we could place that dog. Is there a one-story facility that dog is going to go to every day, but that's the only place they're really going to be going to because our facility folks don't have public access? That is most certainly something we want to do. We want to make sure that we're looking at all the qualities of the dogs and matching them up with all the qualities and needs of our graduates. And if that can be met, yes, that is list dependent though. So there may be a time where we have that facility on our list and we can utilize it in that way, but then there may not be. And then unfortunately, I'd have to release that puppy. So that was a great question. Hope I answered that one. After an intact male is neutered, how long to possibly settle hormonal behaviors? This is a great question as well. It's debatable. We have seen it happen in 6 months. We have seen it happen quicker than that with some of the males. We've seen some males who it really hasn't mattered much at all. So I think it really just depends on the actual dog, and forgive me for my technical term, but just how much intactness he does have. So we know that going into it, and we will give those dogs extra time and extra consideration. Again, it's a hard line where we're going, where we have to look at, is this dog truly distracted by its environment, or is he distracted because his hormonal behaviors are there? And that's something that we consider and we look at and we work it into our training plan and our behavior modification plan. Once the dog goes on a behavior modification plan too, we do have check-in periods to see how the dog is doing, and we will assess to see if the plan is working or if it's not working. So if a pup has prey drive and we want to use high value food rewards, what is recommended? I think I'll let Becky Hine answer that one with what is recommended for the puppy homes. Becky?
Yeah, We try to, each puppy's a little bit different what they respond to. So you want to get something really kind of stinky, smelly from the pet stores, what we usually recommend. Some common ones we use here are Bill Jacks and Zooks. So I can put those in the chat. I don't know. Are there any, Chuck, you had that like whole box on your desk. Is that what you
Yes, I did not know. I did not know. So we have a bunch of different things here's the Zooks minis that you were talking about. We have some other Hills natural jerky treats. We have there's where's these ones seem to be they're quite expensive, but they do seem to be a high value treat. They're called Power Bites, and this is the Real Rabbit sweet potato recipe. The dogs here in training really like those. So and yeah, that's a great point. You have to remember what is high value, right? Some dogs, even petting is high value, but it depends on what you're going against, right? If that dog's favorite thing is a tennis ball, then you have to come out with something a little bit more rewarding than that, or at least equal to, and then your praise that you give them for making the right choices really ups that ante as well.
Shelly Dickinson has her hand up.
I have my hand up. Chuck, I wanted to pop in. You missed one question up above. It was, do the trainers review the puppy reports before working with the dog, or do they start with a clean slate? I thought that was a great question.
That is a great question. The puppies start with a clean slate. Becky keeps me informed about anything that is out of the ordinary with the dogs, or something that might be a safety issue with the dogs coming in. I'm informed of that. And if that's a safety issue, I will inform the instructors. However, they're basically a clean slate. As soon as we start to notice behaviors, we start to try to put those trends together. And that's a great question, because we actually did. We have a board member here who gave us a lecture and presentation, a seminar on unconscious bias. So basically, we want to make sure that we're not having any bias towards anything with the dog. And that's something we really check each other on pretty diligently here. Are they holding on to a dog and missing some behaviors that are concerning because the dog is so cute and so fluffy? Are we not giving a dog a chance because he might be a little bit assertive and can be a little annoying out in the community run yard? We definitely want to make sure that there are no bias and that we're objectively reporting the behaviors that we see. And that's something that we do at all levels. Thank you. I did not see that one, Shelley. Let's see. Anything you could do about ghost barking, like they are looking in a direction, but nothing seems by the human. That could be, difficult things. We want to make sure we got to try to figure out exactly what is causing that ghost barking. Are they looking at what is, anytime that the behavior happens, try to observe the environment. What's going on in the environment? Is there noise outside? And then maybe just letting the dog explore a little bit. It is hard. Sometimes it's hard to get the timing right of when to reward that dog appropriately. We've been using new tools, and I could talk about those a little bit, that we're experimenting, different things that we're doing and changing the association with the dog that's in there. So one thing is either, sometimes a frozen Kong could be something that you can utilize in a situation like that with the ghost barking if there's a certain area. A manners minder might be something these are definitely things that you would want to, I'm not saying to utilize in the puppy home. Becky, I'm not going to tell them what to utilize, but you definitely want to contact your puppy program manager and seek their advice on ways to handle it. So this is a great one. How much does the trainer's input weigh into the decision to release? If they see some positive qualities in a dog, do they request extra time to modify the behavior? That can be a possibility. We always have to look at what are the positive qualities in the dog, and do we have the people on the list that we can serve? We also have to make sure it's in the dog's best interest. Not every dog wants to go on to be a service dog, and we have to make sure that we're not trying to do this for our needs as trainers, to get a dog to graduate, or as our needs for numbers or anything like that. We want to make sure that this dog wants to work, enjoys working, and will be in there. Trainers ask for extra time all the time, and I love it when they do. Our goal is to place as many dogs as we possibly can. The more dogs we place, the more lives we change. That's the most important thing. However, we don't want to burden someone's life and make that wrong placement. So yes, it does that. It does come back to what qualities the dog has. Now, an example of that, if the dog is having difficulty grooming, the dog doesn't like to be pet and might avoid being pet. The dog is showing some surface sensitivity. Those are, a combination of a lot of different things that we probably wouldn't put too much extra time in. However, if the dog is just showing some slight surface sensitivity, but the dog is extremely cuddly, the dog checks in with the handler, the dog has no distractions, and is just a dog that could really benefit someone, but it has these slight surface sensitivities, that's one that we can put some extra time into modifying the behavior. Are there any other questions?
I think there's one more, Chuck, below that.
Oh, I got to get better at it.
Scroll down.
I do.
Do you see it? I can read it for you if you want.
Yeah, I'm reading through. I just want to make sure. So that's a good question. So the question, basically the question is, what specific behaviors would disqualify for placement as a breeder, assuming the dog passed all its medical requirements? That is something that we are looking into right now, and I was actually a little bit shocked where I don't recall the exact numbers, but they said that something like 95% of the traits weren't passed on in some of that stuff, and that took me by surprise a little bit. And basically that is something that we leave up to the breeding department, because sometimes they might take a dog with a little less desirable behavioral traits than because they're looking to modify maybe some health traits, and they might accept a little bit more of that. The way the breeding process works is we fill out, so we do our temperament testing on the dogs, where we're assessing them for how they respond to novel stimulus, whether it's sounds and sights, and how they handle physical manipulation, and how easily they are to move through different environments, and how they stack stress. So we have that temperament test. And then you guys fill out your CBARC questionnaire, and then they compare that to the temperament test. And then they're also looking at, as trainers, we have to fill out breeder evals on each of the dogs 6 weeks in. And it's about a 3-page form that has a bunch of different questions on it that we have to rate each dog. Then they take that and compare all of that to all the litter mates, and they look at what they're wanting. And sometimes they might take a dog who might show some slight prey drive or something like that, or maybe doing some barking, because maybe it was a learned behavior in the puppy home, but the litter mates are looking great, the genetics are looking great, and they really want those genetic lines. So that's a good question. I'm not exactly sure of what the threshold would be for them in terms of releasing a dog on that, but that's a decision that the national breeding vet would make at that time. If we have some really specific concerns about the dog, we do email them, we do talk to them, and we will voice our concerns with them. I'm going to scroll down now, see if there's any more.
I think that was the last thing, but there was one way at the top that was probably more of a question for me, and it said if a friend wants to adopt our dog, if she is career changed, when do they need to submit an application for adoption? And our current criteria is that puppy raisers can nominate a friend or family member to adopt the dog if released. However, they should be involved with the organization. They should ideally know the dog, know their temperament, know that they truly want to adopt the dog. And then they can't have more than one other release dog in their home, so they can't just be like collecting a bunch of release dogs, basically. The other thing is that if a dog were released from the program and the puppy raisers chooses not to adopt them, we do simultaneously consider our release dog waiting list that we already have in place. So these are people that have supported the organization through either, through their volunteer work or donations or both over the course of many years, and they've earned a right to be on a list that's mostly moderated by our fundraising department. So we would be looking at that list as well as looking at the recommendation of the puppy raiser when selecting an adoptive home for the dog. And we would get that information at turn-in. So as part of your turn-in paperwork, you would be letting us know if you want to adopt the dog, yes or no, and if not, if there is anyone that you wanted to nominate to adopt them if that opportunity arose. Do those that adopt a career change pay a fee to Canine Companions? Yes, and it's an adoption fee. A lot of people say, oh, it's a donation, but it can't actually legally be a donation because they are getting an amazing, amazing dog in exchange. So it's not a flat out donation, and that's $1,000 to adopt the dog. Any other questions about release dogs?
Becky, I did want to share my screen here one more time. I have a couple things that I thought would be interesting, and see if I could pull that up here again. Here, let me see this. I'm going to minimize that. And go here. So I don't know if you could see this, but it's a quote by John Wooden, who's a famous basketball coach. And basically, this is what I tell the instructors here, and I hope that the puppy raisers know this as well, that success is a peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you did your best to become the best you are capable of becoming. And the reason that I say that's important to not only our instructors is because we put a lot of hard work and dedication into the dogs. And the last thing we want is to feel like we failed them in a certain way. What we have to do is look at the dogs and in an unbiased way and just accept the behavior for what it is its behavior. They're animals. They're doing things that they've either been reinforced for, either knowingly or unknowingly. And we can't really hold our heads down if the dog didn't make it or blame ourselves, especially if we know we did everything possible to help that dog be successful. Sometimes it's just not going to work out. And I really want our puppy raisers to know that. And I really want our staff to know that too, because the things that we're doing are very difficult. There are slight a slight error, and you can really affect the life of someone. Just using an example, if we place a dog in a skill companion role and then that dog doesn't end up working out, now you have a child who has become a family and a mother and a father and who have all become attached to this animal, but yet they're alternating their life to come up and make up for the deficits that the dog may have. And that's a pretty big moral responsibility that the trainers have. But in knowing that as well, we have a responsibility to the puppy raisers and to the donors that we're making the best use of our resources. And that's why we want to place as many dogs as possible as well, because you guys have put in so much time and effort and hard work, and know that we want to honor that as well. And that's why we look at those reports. That's why we do all the extra work that we do with the behavior modification plans with the dogs. And we really want to honor that as well too. So it is a very heavy burden that the instructors carry, and sometimes it can be very emotional for them as well. So I wanted to express that as long as we're all just doing the best that we can, we're going to do the right things. And that's the main point, is we're going to do the right things when we're led by doing the best that we can. Any questions? I can't see the chat from there.
There is a question in the chat. I can read it to you if you want.
Sure.
It says, is it a group decision to release? Would a different trainer handle the dog and then see if the behaviors are consistent among different people or handlers?
So yes, basically it's a group decision that as the manager and being responsible for the training program, I have sort of the final word and say in that. However, I'm always open for discussion with the trainers. We talk about it, and yes, we will switch dogs around on strings. We will try different things. We'll not only have just different instructors working them, but we'll have dogs that will be worked by kennel staff here. We'll have dogs that might be worked by the development staff, so we could see how these behaviors are being modified, and also to make sure that like I said before, to make sure that there are no bias there. So yes, that is something that we would look into.
And then there's another question. Can applicants apply to different regions?
Actually, Shelley, are you still on? I want to say no.
Yes, the answer is no. You would need to apply to the region that is your home region. However, we do sometimes share applicants or candidates between each other. If we're talking about, we're talking about people getting dogs, correct? I'm assuming. So sometimes if somebody has a hard time.
That's a good question. Maybe release dog applicant.
That's a good question.
I don't know. Maybe you can clarify, Connie, whether you're talking about release dog applicants or people applying for a service dog. Okay, candidates. Yes, we were on the right track.
Okay. Hey, it was my field. So occasionally we will share candidates if we have an open space and can't fill it due to short notice, or somebody has an extra long list of skill companions and they'll check to see if anybody's willing to travel. So yes, it can happen. Sometimes a regional places a hearing dog that isn't normally placing hearing dogs just because they have one trained and ready to go. Sometimes that happens down here. So it is possible. It is not usual, but it is possible.
Cool. I have a question, but it's kind of a big one.
Okay.
I was wondering if you could touch on, Chuck, like people always, puppy raisers have concerns. I think that the dogs will come here and feel stressed, or people talk a lot about kennel stress. Can you talk about some of the cool things that you guys do to help minimize that? And also maybe just, I don't know, no pressure, but just why stress isn't always a bad thing. There's different kinds of stress.
Yes, that's great. Sometimes we hear the term kennel stress, and And we think the dogs are either being neglected or treated a certain way, but that's not the case. These dogs are loved 24/7. I mean, these trainers, think of them as their own. They would do anything for them. Any of us staff here would. I mean, there's a reason we do what we do, and it's because we love animals and we love helping people. So with that said, it is an environment, and that's what you sort of have to think about is it could be stress. So I know when I first went to college and I moved away from home, that was hard for me. I was in a different environment, had to meet different people. My normal friends weren't there. The roads were different. The stoplights were different. The whole town was different than what I grew up in. I grew up, in a beach community, and I went away to a college in the mountains, and it was overwhelming for me. It was stressful. So that's sort of what we have to think of, is some of these dogs are used to having that so much social interaction with just one person here, one person at a time. And now they get put on a group of trainer strings and they sit there and they look in the crate and they're just waiting for their turn. They're like, pick me, oh, pick me. And they're just not sometimes getting that met. So what we're doing, we've done a lot of things. So talk a little bit real quick about the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is the one that's the relaxing. That's your digestive mode. It sort of brings you down. It's calming. The sympathetic nervous system is the active nervous system, the one that keeps you going, that fight or flight, the stimulating one. And sometimes the dogs in the kennel environment can be constantly stimulated. They hear the barking. They see the people. Are they going to pick me? Is it feeding time? Or is it run time? Do I get to go play? Do I get to go train? And they're constantly stimulated in that way. So what we're doing is we're trying to take them out of that sympathetic system, which can even be a training session. Just a click and a treat for doing light can be stimulating for a dog. They're getting food. They're being, their arousal levels are going higher. They're being challenged in different ways. So what we're trying to do then is take that active and that stimulating activity into more of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is that calming one. So things that we have done here. One, kennel staff and trainers have all taken, we had a person come on and teach us doggy massage for all the dogs so that we can help them calm down and relax. We've been using sometimes snuffle mats for the dogs, where we have these little mats and we'll disperse treats. The act of actually sniffing can really help them to put them into that parasympathetic nervous system. Think of maybe a person who might be having an anxiety attack. They're taught to take slow, deep, long breaths. It helps switches that nervous system over. We have been using X pens and the puppy play pen, since it's not being utilized right now, and we've been letting dogs hang out there in different environments with different toys. We've been using office setups, development staff, different program staff, having dogs in the office with them and working them from there. We've been utilizing lick mats with the dogs to try to, after a working session or at a certain time, if they're aroused, the act of licking for a dog can help put them into that parasympathetic nervous system. We've been doing frozen Kongs. We've been doing ice treats, frozen ice treats for them, extra walks, so that it's a calming walk, and it's not a walk where we're just in a routine and a route. So we've been having to look at how we structure our day as trainers a little bit differently to help make sure that we're not overstimulating the dogs inadvertently through our training. That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of stuff, and I just wanted to take time to give Chuck and Shelly a shout out for just how invested they are in the well-being of the dogs and all this really cool stuff that they are bringing into the Southwest region to make sure that the dogs have the best quality of life while they're here, as well as just being creative. So I really appreciate that about you guys. And I know it's great for the puppy raisers to hear that you're doing all that cool stuff with the dogs that they love so much.
We're just, trying to do the best that we can. Like I said, the more dogs that we can get through the program successfully, the more clients we serve, the more people we help. That's what it's all about. But we also do have to have that realization that some dogs are not going to want to be service dogs and are better off being a pet dog, and they're going to be happy in their life being a pet dog, because with the service role does come a certain amount of expectations, a certain amount of life challenges, going out all the time, doing things, and it can be stressful. So some dogs just really are not, it's not in their best interest, and that's what we also have to look out for too, is making sure that the dogs are happy.
Awesome. I think we did it. Everybody's putting their thanks in the chat. I don't know if you can see it.
Thank you, guys. It's been great. It's been great being here at the Southwest region over the last 3 to 4 years now. This staff here, I've gotten a chance to work with many staff throughout the nation. Super impressed, super talented staff. They work so well together. The kennel staff here is so dedicated in their job and taking care of the dogs. Sarah Higgs, our vet tech as well, know that we really want the best interest in, for the dogs are in all of our hearts, and they really want everyone to be successful. They want every graduate to be successful that comes through here as well. They're really focused around the mission here.
Awesome. Well, this is going to be recorded, so I will eventually get it on YouTube and captioned. And that way, if any of you walked in part way, you can watch the other part, or you can let other puppy raisers know about it, because this was really, really valuable, Chuck. And I know your time is scarce, so thank you so much for sharing with us.
Well, thank you, and bye, guys. Have a good afternoon, everyone.